Well, it's another episode of Serving a Cup of Life here at the Rio Coco Cafe,
New
your
spot.
new spot, our study room. We're drinking some nice Honduras Blue Mountain Dark. The mountains in Honduras in the late afternoon, I don't know what is in the atmosphere, but it just seems like they turn blue. And they have this definite blue hue to them.
I think the coffee is much better. Their Blue Mountain coffee is much better than
Jamaican?
the famous Jamaican Blue Mountain,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
there was a plantation in Jamaica in the 20s and 30s in the Blue Mountains of Jamaica.
They're actually called that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a cool name.
it is. And they started growing coffee, and it started to be served in a lot of places. And I think it's served at the White House.
Oh wow, okay.
So it's a definitely a good coffee.
They're not serving the monkey poop coffee at the White House.
Not the Luwak coffee. No Luwak coffee at the White House. Okay, so
The inspiration for this week. So we roast our coffees here on Tuesdays and Fridays. So my day to roast is on Friday. And what I spend a lot of the time doing is making bags. And we have a number of what we like to call our hero blends. I'll hold it up here so we can see.
yes.
So the one that caught my attention this week was our Sky Larkin bag. I wish I could put it a little higher. It's okay.
Sky Larkin.
And
Okay, and that's a image of our friend, a young pilot, World War II pilot, Keith Larkin.
oh, is that your phone?
And someone is calling me, and I'm going to have to call you right back, Rhett. So,
Okay.
we're live, guys. We're live here at the Rio Coco Cafe, okay? So, Keith Larkin, he is famous in the world of technical achievements in that he owns a patent on a lightweight headset that he designed in the 1960s. And Keith, as a result of that, became very well known in our nation, in our business community, and in the world of aviation.
Mm.
Okay?
So on Friday, I had the thought. Well, I remember Keith vaguely. He passed away in what year?
I think it was early 2000s.
Okay.
He passed away. Let's see. Yeah, it was early
The
2000s.
memories I have of Keith are him being a very inquisitive, funny guy. He'd come over on Saturdays and we'd make pancakes.
Right.
And him and Pop would have coffee. And he always loved talking about flying. I mean, that was his favorite thing to talk about, I would say. And if from that point of view, as a little kid without knowing anything, you would just think this is one of my dad's cool pilot friends. But there's also these other memories of visiting his was it a warehouse space in Fort Pierce, maybe?
Right.
We go in there, he'd show us around the shop. He had a garage filled with boats and other random vehicles. So anyway, I always just had the impression that I didn't know anything about his philanthropic side.
Right.
And it was just me as a kid. It was cool to have another cool friend like that was, showing you cool things.
Right. Yeah.
And I had no idea because now Plantronics is one of the big
Has been one of the big companies.
headset.
Right.
They're in gaming. They're in all these different spaces. You
Uh-huh.
can find Plantronic stuff, and that was his.
Well,
that was his at one point.
every word spoken by the Apollo astronauts on the moon
Yeah.
was spoken through one of Keith's microphones and headsets.
So I just had the thought, I want to know more about this guy.
He's an extraordinary character.
So
what you remember is one day he showed up at our house, and it was either you or Michaela, or it might have been Ariel, said, "Uncle Keith, you have two different pairs of shoes on this morning." And he looks down and goes, "Well, it was dark this morning when I was in my closet, and they just felt comfortable." So
just strolled on out. Well, where did you meet Keith? Tell us the story of where you first met him.
Okay,
and how he came into your life.
Well, it was 1985. I was back in Florida just on a short time because I had started working in Honduras with the
So
refugees.
you're already a slight missionary.
I'd been a missionary at that point for, I guess, maybe about 6 or 8 months.
Okay.
I'd gotten caught up.
You hadn't been back to Hawaii yet?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so. I don't think I'd been back to Hawaii.
So you physically met him where? In Florida?
Well, I heard from my friends in town here that there was a mission ship that had just pulled into the harbor, the dock at Fort Pierce.
In Fort Pierce.
Fort Pierce. So
is this like a big boat, or what are we talking? Like
about 285 feet.
And this is taking like medical things, or
well, what I did was I got on my dad owned a motorcycle at the time. Forrest owned a motorcycle.
Okay.
So I got on his motorcycle.
You're allowed to just drive it?
Well, I didn't have I remember I still had a Hawaii license at that point, and I never had a motorcycle endorsement, but I own motorcycles.
You
so,
said, hey, I've landed planes on a boat. Come on.
So I drove his motorcycle down to the dock, and I walked. I see this big ship. It looked like a freighter, but it also looked like it had cabin space.
Mm.
And so I walk up the gangplank, and standing there is this guy who I introduced myself, and he said, my name is Keith Larkin.
So you're on a boat.
Well, we're on the boat. And I said, well, I heard there's a mission ship here. And he said, yeah, this is a missionary ship. And I said, well, where's it coming from? He said, well, I just bought it from the Canadian government. And I sailed it down here. And now we're loading up with a lot of food and other supplies, and we're on our way to Haiti because we want to feed a bunch of kids.
Okay.
All right, so.
And this is 1985?
1985.
Okay.
So this really intrigued me.
Yeah.
You know? And I don't know if when it was I went back to see him, but he gave me a tour of the boat.
Yeah.
And in fact, Keith had just purchased it, and as I later found out, the story of him sailing it down from Newfoundland.
I was going to say, the fact that he sailed, that sounds like a whole nother
well, what happened
itself.
Was he bought this freighter ferry that was servicing the islands. There's a lot of offshore islands along the northeast the provinces of Canada.
I've never been, but
Nova Scotia, Newfoundland.
Most coastline in the world, right?
Yeah, but there's ferry service there, and this was apparently a ferry, and it hauled freight. And so Keith bought it. He got his son Kevin to come out from California. He hired a bunch of local guys to be the engineers and fix up the boat before they sailed it down. Well, it turns out these guys that Keith hired, he always had a heart for people that were down and out.
Yeah.
So some of these guys he hired said they were electricians, and he probably met them. They might have been sitting on a curb drinking a bottle of wine, right?
I said, yeah, I can. Sure.
Okay, well, come in, you can work for us. So Keith hired this motley crew, and apparently they got into a storm somewhere off the coast of New Jersey as they're coming down. One of their generators went out.
Oh, no.
Another one was about ready to go out. They found themselves, Keith thought they were going to sink. The storm was that bad. And no one could fix anything. And his son, Kevin, later told me this was one of the most harrowing experiences that he ever had with his dad. And Keith was full of adventures in his life, as it turns out. And by the time he got to Fort Pierce, he had met a guy named Don Stevens who had just started a ministry with Youth with a Mission called Mercy Ships.
Okay, that sounds familiar.
And so Mercy Ships, at that point, I think they had 1 or 2 ships, and they equipped them as hospitals. And
didn't we go somewhere in Texas and meet somebody that was a captain of one of those boats?
Yeah, we went to Pensacola to load some cargo.
Pensacola, okay.
And
that's not Texas.
And this was the same ship.
It was the same one.
Because Keith called Don Stevens up when he got to Fort Pierce. He realized he wasn't called to be a sailor. Okay. And he said, Don, I'm going to donate this ship to you because I know you can do a better job of bringing the gospel
So is
around
that
the
the
world.
guy that we met up with?
No, we met somebody that was a captain of the
Okay, I
ship.
have vague memories of that.
Yeah, we went on board because we went up
Yeah.
to Pensacola, and that's the time that we went to the Naval Aviation Museum, and they
Okay. Yeah.
just moved the QBO Club bar there, and I was so excited to see the QBO Club bar because when I
That
was
was your
in the
that
Navy
was your spot.
and when we were stationed at Subic Bay in the Philippines, our Naval Air Station was on the south side of the bay, and we had our officers club. And when they closed the base down, they basically took this officers club with all the memorabilia, all the plaques on the wall of all of our squadrons,
What a thing to pull off.
and they brought that to the Naval Aviation Museum, and you can actually, it's still there.
Yeah.
They brought the red bar stools, the red upholstery on the bar. Everything was just as it was when I last saw it in probably this was probably 79 when I last saw it. It was exactly the same. Okay.
So anyway, you're on the ship with Keith.
Right. And it turns out that the more I spent time with Keith, the more I got to know he was a pretty extraordinary character. He was a kid from Palatka, Florida, when he was 18.
Where is Palatka?
It's up by St. Augustine.
Okay.
It's out in the swamp in
Okay.
St. Augustine. In fact, the airfield up there is named after his brother. It's the K. Larkin Airfield because his brother went off and joined the Air Corps, Army Air Corps, and was killed in some sort of mission. And
What's
so
his brother's name?
K.
Just K.
K-A-Y.
Okay.
K. Larkin.
Wow.
So Keith joins the Army Air Corps and becomes a pilot.
Hmm.
And his job in World War II was ferrying airplanes from the factories in California, and he would show up in Long Beach at where they had all these airplanes that had put into service, and he would pick one out and fly it to Brazil,
Oh, okay.
fly it across the Atlantic to West Africa,
Yeah.
then fly up to Spain or to Italy somewhere and deliver the airplane.
So he
He was a ferry pilot.
a lot of mileage.
A lot of mileage, a lot of open ocean flying.
Yeah.
And when the war ended, he became a military air transport pilot, MATS it was called.
Hmm.
And this was like the little flying service that the U.S. Army Air Corps set up to post-World War II. And we were Europe, of course. There's famine. There's refugees, return home. There's just chaos.
Yeah.
1946, 47, 48, 49, these years. Horrible winters.
I wonder if that's the reason he became grew the heart that he did, you know.
It might have been.
Imagine seeing all of that and flying over all that. And
Well, one of the things that happened was the Russians, when they took control of their zone of Germany, which was all of Eastern Germany, there was this little island called Berlin that was in the middle of the Russian zone.
Mhm.
And Berlin, with the capital of Nazi Germany,
Yeah.
was divided up into 4 different zones, a Russian zone, an English zone, an American, and a French.
Mm.
And so there were so many people when the communist government took over in Eastern Germany, people started realizing this is not a good thing. So
Yeah.
they started coming to Berlin,
It's like the
and
safe haven.
a safe haven. And there they would catch a flight or something out and get to Western Germany.
Mm.
And the Russians realized this is a big hole in the wall, so
Yeah.
to speak, of the Iron Curtain.
Yeah.
And so they fenced it, and then they blockaded it because there were supposedly 3 different highways from the western part of Germany that the Americans and the British could
Mm.
bring supplies in, but they just suddenly cut those off. And now
What year is this?
this is
right
probably
after the war.
1947, 1948.
So it was like Russia almost immediately became
Oh, they
an
became
enemy.
they became belligerent,
Yeah.
and they became very controlling. And when they promised free elections in Poland, in Hungary, in Czech, of course the elections didn't happen.
So this is the landscape that he's working in for. How long was he in for after the war had ended?
Well, something significant happened during the blockade of Berlin. Is the United States government said we're going to airlift everything in.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to might blockade the road, but we're going to keep flying, and we have the routes in. And if they send their fighters up, we're going to send our fighters up and shoot them down.
Yeah.
So they started an airlift. This is one of the most incredible events in really human history
Yeah.
because they were hauling coal, they were hauling food, they were hauling medical supplies because you had a
When you say they, is this the American Air
United
Force?
States Air Force.
Any other Air Forces or just
Probably
them?
no.
Okay.
And so they're taking off.
And so what is their goal?
Their goal is to keep the people of Berlin alive during this
Wow.
blockade.
Yeah.
So they're bringing, it was a brutal winter, so they brought coal in to heat the homes.
Mm-hmm.
They brought enough food to feed probably 500,000 people every day. And what happened is kids started standing and watching the airplanes coming in at Tempelhof because that was the airport in Berlin, and there was a plane landing every 2 minutes around the clock. And so one of Keith's buddies saw these kids standing on the end of the runway. And so on his approach, he took a bunch of candy bars and he opened the window and he threw the candy bars out.
Oh, cool.
Now, the problem was the candy bars were going at 120 miles an hour and they hit the ground and some of them hit the kids. So on the next flight, this friend of Keith and his squadron took handkerchiefs and made little parachutes.
Wow.
And then now threw them out, and now these parachutes are dropping. And this became, a reporter heard about this, and now it's all over the news in the United States that these Air Force pilots are dropping chocolate bars on parachutes to these kids standing at the end of the runway. Wow. And Keith was part of that. It was an incredible event, and finally the Russians realized the blockade was doing nothing, so they finally opened up the highways. But the U.S. Air Force proved itself able to actually supply a huge city with all the. It was incredible. It was incredible.
And when you think about, well, just a little side note, but that's right after the war ends, and that makes me very proud to be American when you hear stories like that.
Right now,
you win a war. And then you're doing that for the people that you just beat,
That was
who does that?
Well,
no other country does that.
That's the thing about us Americans. We fight for righteous causes, it seems. We defeat the enemy, and then we go rebuild the country.
Right.
That's what we did to Japan.
Yeah.
That's what we did to...
it's easy. I think a lot of people forget that in this modern era. And I think it's easy to because of the way the media is going right now. But anyway, that so he and his guys were the people that started doing that.
And at the time, your grandfather and grandmother were living in Frankfurt.
Oh,
and
you weren't born yet.
No, I wasn't. My brother, I had a sister that was born in 1948, Carolyn, and she lived for 9 months and died. She was a premature baby. Then my brother was born in 1950 in Frankfurt, and I was born in 1951. But my dad went back to New Jersey for a few months when that happened.
You were barely in New Jersey, right?
Barely in New Jersey. But so Keith eventually got out of the Air Force, and all he knew was flying. So the first thing that he did was he bought a bunch of surplus World War II fighters.
What? Okay, so how is somebody able to just do that?
Well, after World War II, we had lots of airplanes that were surplus.
Right, but did he have enough money just to buy some, or did he?
They had to be like super cheap, and but he apparently bought some P-40s, which were the ones that always had that.
Is that the Mustang?
No, P-40 Warhawk.
Okay, yeah. Those okay.
And he started a cloud seeding business. In other words, dropping these silver nitrate pellets into clouds, thinking it would cause it to rain. And now there's some scientific evidence that, in fact, that works. So Keith was doing it in California.
Do you know how do you get into that?
That's Keith. You have been with Keith in a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
And he pulls out, what's he do? He pulls out a napkin and he starts drawing, right?
He's a monkey. He's a wrench monkey for sure.
Well, but he's always got these ideas.
He does.
And he's got napkins with these designs on them.
Okay, but so you don't know how he went from post-military pilot to acquiring.
Yeah.
But in my mind, you have to have someone's got to pay for a bunch of those planes, right?
I don't know how he did it.
Okay, so
But-
that's a bit of a mystery.
But
for
I
us.
know this: when he was stationed in California before he got out, he bought a bunch of vending machines and had them.
There it is. There it is.
He had them scattered around the base.
This guy's a genius.
Okay, he's a real entrepreneur.
He is.
He had vending machines.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's probably where he made his money.
Okay, there it is.
And then he buys.
I'm glad I went back and asked for you to dig a little deeper for that.
I remember the vending machine because I thought, what a random thing. And he said, yeah, we always needed a Coke and something to eat, you know.
Yeah.
So,
my God.
So
multifaceted genius.
So when he got out of the Air Force, and then he had one of his buddies was flying for United Airlines at the time. And he said to Keith, you know, these headsets that we're wearing, they're just big, they're bulky, and, you know, after 6-7 hours of flying, they're just so uncomfortable. He said, there ought to be an easier way and something that's much lighter and better way to do this. And so Keith thought about that. And he remembered in flight school when he was in a biplane with an open cockpit, he would sit in the front and the instructor would sit in the back. This is how he learned to fly in the Air Force. And they had a hollow tube that ran from the back cockpit to the front cockpit. Okay. And so when the instructor wanted to tell him something, he would reach up and tap him on the shoulder, and Keith would pick up the tube and hold it up to his ear, and in the back, the instructor would speak, and Keith could hear it over the noise of the airflow and the engine, and then Keith would speak into it, and they would have conversations that way.
Was this kind of like one of those tubes that Joe Walsh uses when he's doing the...
Yeah, it's like a garden hose.
Doing the, what do you call that? They put it in their mouth?
Voice box.
Yeah, the voice box.
Okay. But this was probably a little bit bigger. Just think of a garden hose.
Yeah.
Okay, and it works because sound attenuates through that curved tube.
You want to know something? I saw a video while I was using the restroom this morning. People standing in Grand Central Station, and the way these ceilings are arced. So one girl was in one corner, and the other girl went to the other corner, and they put their mouth in the corner like this and said hello, and they could hear each other because of the way the curvature of the ceiling.
How about
the sound wave went up and over? It was like they were having a conversation in the middle of.
Wow.
That's pretty cool, right? I'll try to find it later to show you. That's exactly what that is.
Well, he thought about that, and he said, okay, sound moves up a hollow tube.
Yeah.
So he got a hearing aid, because remember you get this hearing aid, which is a little amplifier, and it connects onto your ear. And in those days, hearing aids were a little bit bulky.
Yeah.
And they had a little microphone that was embedded in the hearing aid, or in the structure. So what he did is he took the microphone plating off. He took a hollow tube and he took some sort of like blow dryer or something and heated and then curved it. And then he stuck it in the hearing aid right where the microphone was. And by golly, when he put it on, he could hear himself talking through the hearing aid and started recording himself. And he went, wow.
So he made it manually via other pieces of tech. And modified it.
No, he took a hearing aid and just
that's what I'm saying. He modified the actual hardware.
Right.
Wow,
and he curved the hollow tube, and then he thought, I can make one. So he made one of these and he gave it to his friend. I think his friend's name was Will Holloway. I think that was the guy.
Yeah.
And this guy used it on his next flight.
Yeah. This is the United guy.
And he goes, Keith, this thing works.
So he gave him the first prototype.
Gave him the prototype and it worked. So Keith thought this is going to sell.
Yeah.
So he decided to make the drawings and submit it as a patent, get a patent on it.
Yeah.
And yes, by golly, the patent office issued him the patent on this hollow tube design.
Mm-hmm.
And so he started manufacturing them, and I think at the time he was living in Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
He close by Santa Cruz, I think, is a place called Watsonville, and that's where Keith eventually had a hangar and he had some airplanes. That's where he had his airplanes.
Yeah,
it's cloud seeding business.
I thought. See, it's funny because you said he's from Florida. I didn't know that. In my mind, he was from California.
In the Air Force, when he got the last station in the Air Force, I think he was stationed at McClellan Air
Yeah.
Force Base
At
somewhere.
that point, he's a family man, right?
No,
Oh.
he met his wife at the Officers Club bar, Cynthia.
Oh, okay.
She was the cute blonde that was
Yeah.
sitting at the end of the bar, and he decided.
How old is Kevin?
Kevin's probably
You're-
in his
you're-
60s now.
You're a little older than him?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think at the time that he invented this, I think he probably was married to Cynthia.
By the time he patented the first...
So he patented, he started manufacturing them, and he decided to call his company Planetronics, because
Yeah.
it's for airplanes,
Yeah.
and it's electronics, Plantronics.
Yeah.
And Plantronics just took off because all these airline pilots started buying the product, and airlines started buying the product.
Yeah.
Well, then a couple of competitors like IBM and somebody else built their own assembly lines and started copying Keith's design.
Yeah.
And he said, wait a minute, I have a patent over this. And they said, so what?
Yeah.
So Keith took them to court, and I've seen the documents. The U.S. Supreme Court
Yeah.
decided that Keith Larkin owned the patent to this, and it shut IBM and this other company, just shut him down.
Mm.
And so Keith became very wealthy
Yeah.
selling these headsets. And so at a certain point, he decided he was going to sell Plantronics, and he made millions.
Well, at what point was that? What year do you remember?
I think it had to be probably sometime in the late 60s.
And was he friends with your folks at this point?
No,
Not
no,
yet.
no,
Okay.
no. He met my parents after I met him on the ship in '85.
Okay.
So he sold Plantronics, and Keith took his money. He bought property up in the Sierra Mountains,
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of acres. He built an airstrip, and he built out a camp, and he started bringing kids from the San Francisco Bay Area, Santa Cruz, San Jose area,
Yeah.
up to this camp in the summertime for a 2-week Christian camp experience at no cost.
Oh.
And he did that. Now, I was with Keith in Santa Cruz I think we were at eating breakfast at some place. It might have been a Mexican food restaurant, El Toro Bravo, maybe.
This is in Santa Cruz?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this girl walks up. She's a black girl. And she says, Mr. Larkin, you don't remember me, do you? And he said, no, I don't. She said, I went to your camp.
Aw.
She said it was one of the most profound experiences for me as a child, and it really helped me map out my way for my adult life. And I just really want to thank you for doing that. And Keith was in tears.
Yeah.
When he heard that, it was really cool. Well,
The whole thing was worth it right then.
right. He did that, I think, for 8 years until he ran out of money.
Classic.
And so he started, since he owned the patent.
So at that point, he was completely not involved with Plantronics. He had sold the whole thing. Okay.
He sold it. But since he owned the patent,
Oh, so he owned that.
he owns the patent. So he started another headset company called ACS.
Okay.
And ACS, yeah, I think that's what it was.
So they didn't take the patent with them when he sold the business or whatever.
He sold the business, but he retained rights to the patent.
Oh, interesting.
He gave them permission
to use it.
to use his product. So then he started ACS, and at a certain point, that company again took off. He made a lot more money.
Okay.
And when I met him in '85, I think he had just the year before sold ACS and made another bag of money.
Okay.
Now he's spending the money.
He's buying a ship.
So he went and bought a ship.
Giving it away.
Okay.
Deciding he's not a sailor.
Decided he's right. He's not a sailor. And Keith had he had a habit of stopping by different Christian ministries, finding out what they were doing, and then taking out his checkbook and just writing a check.
Yeah.
That's what he was habitual in doing that. He stopped by Mission Aviation Fellowship in Redlands, California. He flew his airplane. Flew his airplane and landed, walked in, found out what they were doing, just pulled out his checkbook, wrote him $10,000, which at the time was close to $70,000, $80,000.
Yeah.
It was a big chunk of money. But Keith at the time took his money from his, I think this is from Plantronics as well as the ACS sale. he started buying World War II airplanes and refurbishing them.
I remember seeing some pictures in his
he
office and stuff.
He would rent these airplanes out to movie productions.
Yeah, because he had Mustangs and stuff, right?
He had, I think, 7 or 8 P-51 Mustangs, and he had one of them. He took the seats out and he put a very comfortable airline seat. And whenever he had to go to Washington for some sort of meeting regarding business or something, he would fly himself from California to Washington, D.C. in his Mustang.
It's a long flight, huh?
But remember, he's used to doing that.
Yeah.
And a couple times he crashed his airplane.
He crashed.
Something happened and he ended up just bellying in out in the desert somewhere. And when he was out of money at one time in our relationship, he was just totally broke because Keith had a habit of giving his money away.
Yeah.
He said, I know there's got to be another airplane out there that I've just forgotten about. And sure enough, there was an airplane that he crash landed in Kansas that ended up, he just gave it to the airport. They ended up putting it on a monument and refurbishing it, and he still technically owned it. Yeah. But there was another one in Nevada, and his son Kevin called me up. This was 2 years ago. And he said, Mike, you know that P-51 that my dad crashed in Nevada? I think I found it. And sure enough, he found this airplane was on an Indian reservation.
Whoa.
And he went and started digging around it because it's still there.
Yeah.
And the Indians that own the land, they said, wait a minute, this is our crashed. P-51s are very valuable to rebuild them. And so even last year, Kevin was calling me up saying, Mike, why don't you come with me and let's see if we can get this off the land without them knowing it and just refurbish it. Keith had airplanes, around, But so he, at one point, had a bunch of P-51s. I know he had some B-25 bombers.
Yeah, big ones.
He bought like 7 or 8 of them. I've seen the pictures sitting at the Watsonville airport. He loved the P-38 Lightning, the twin boom tail. Yeah. He really loved that airplane. He had at least 5 or 6 of those.
Wow.
And then he bought a Gloucester Meteor jet fighter from the Canadian government.
Wow.
He was the first civilian ever to buy a fighter. And he went up and picked up the airplane. And when he asked the FAA about bringing it into the U.S., they said, well, we've never done that before. We don't think you can do it. Well, Keith went up there and he bought the fighter and then he flew it back and landed it at the airport, I think, near Watsonville, and the FAA guys came out and they said, what are you doing? He said, I just bought an airplane. Well, you can't buy a fighter. Who says I can't buy a fighter?
Yeah.
And nobody had bought one.
It's an unprecedented event.
So he was, he also at that time was designing airplanes, and he actually designed a light airplane using a Volkswagen engine that he was going to be a recreational airplane. It actually appeared on the cover of one of the aviation magazines,
Whoa.
the Skylark.
The Skylark, okay.
Oh, yeah. Keith was, he was an inventor.
So at the point that I can remember where he was coming over very often on Saturdays, did he have anything going on at those points?
Well, what happened was when he came, he finally decided that since he was going to be supplying food to Haiti.
Mm-hmm. And this is when you met him.
Yeah, he decided to move to Fort Pierce.
Okay.
He bought a sailboat, and he and Cynthia lived on a sailboat in Fort Pierce. He found a twin-engine Piper Seneca. And so for a number of years,
you had something similar, right?
We had that airplane.
Okay.
Eventually, he sold it to us.
Okay. Well, that sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
Okay.
You made many trips in that airplane to Honduras. Okay. And so Keith, at the time, as he's running out of money, decides he's going to get in the fiberglass business and start making camper shells for trucks.
Yeah.
And actually his first product was he made a camper that had floats on it.
That's what I remember that
and
thing.
A 25-horse motor. He called it the Otter.
Uh-huh.
And I have a picture hanging in my printing room in my office.
Yeah.
Laura sitting in a lawn chair on top of the otter. This was the publicity photos.
Uh-huh.
And he wanted to use Laura because she's little.
Uh-huh.
And he thought it'd make the otter look bigger, which it did.
Yeah.
But that otter appeared on the cover of RV News, and he thought he was going to really it would take off.
Yeah. I distinctly remember seeing that in his little warehouse.
Right, the otter was
Yeah.
sitting in the corner.
Yep.
And then he decided to make campers that would fit on the back of a pickup truck. So he did that for a number of years.
And that's when he was in Fort Pierce.
Fort Pierce,
Okay.
right. And then he realized that fiberglassing wasn't really his thing. So he realized he owned the patent
Yeah.
to the lightweight headset. So he started a third company called Protect Communications.
Okay.
And he started selling headsets to McDonald's and all the drive-throughs. That was the
Yeah.
model. And so McDonald's and Burger King were all buying Keith's headset.
Yeah.
He had a few other inventions along the way. He had one called the rear guard, which was a truck almost backed up to him, and he didn't know it was coming. So he designed this this buzzer that went off that you could connect to the brake lights or the reverse lights. So when your car goes in reverse, your backup lights come on. So it connected to that. So when you backed up, this buzzer would go on beep, 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 and let you know that someone was backing up. And UPS bought a bunch of those.
Yeah.
Keith was an
That's
inventor.
a very common noise on those delivery vans.
But he didn't patent that, and people started copying him, and Chinese started producing them, and it ran him out of the market. But he invented a snowmobile that would
I remember seeing that.
you could collapse and put it in your trunk, so you could take it out and pull out your snowmobile and take off out through the woods, and during the winter. Guy was incredible, and he would sit while we would be having dinner, and just all of a sudden he'd pull up a napkin and he'd take out his pencil and he'd start drawing.
Yeah.
And in his office in Fort Pierce, he had a file cabinet drawer full of these napkins.
Yeah.
So
with this character, with a guy like this in your life, and at the time that you met him, I didn't know you met him at that time. What are the things that you think are that he influenced you the most in?
Well, first of all, Keith was a very, very good pilot.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know on one of his trips to Haiti, he had 5 missionaries with him. He had just had the annual inspection done on the Seneca. And he loaded his passengers up, and he's flying to Haiti, and he always stopped for gas at a place called Georgetown. And so when he came to
That's in Haiti?
No, it's in the Bahamas.
Okay.
It's halfway down.
Yeah.
On one of the islands. And when he put the landing gear down, the nose gear did not come down.
Ooh.
And so this is a problem. So he put G on the airplane thinking it was just stuck and it wouldn't come down. And then on the Seneca, you can pull the landing gear handle, turn it 90 degrees and pull it. Now it should free fall down instead of being connected to the mechanism.
Yeah.
It didn't free fall down. Keith suddenly realized there is a nut that goes up in the housing, and the smooth side is near the wheel, and the part that sticks out is on the away from the wheel. Apparently the mechanic had taken that off for the inspection, but he'd put it on this way, and it was the screw that was holding up the nose wheel.
One piece.
And so
Wow.
he knew it wasn't coming down. So he told the people at the airport, put foam on the runway, which keeps you from getting fire sparks.
Friction, yeah.
So he flies in high and fast, and on final, he shuts down both engines.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has the presence of mind. Right over here is a little rocker switch, the start motors.
Yeah.
And the start motors, and he moved the props to where they're horizontal and they're not vertical.
Mm.
And so he touched down, kept the nose off as long as he could, and finally it fell through, and it just made a clean scrape and took the bottom of the nose of the Seneca, just scraped it right off.
Wow.
So he got all the passengers out. He asked the firemen if they could pull down on the tail. He reached down and pulled the nose gear down.
Yeah.
And then he took duct tape, and he duct taped all around the nose of the Seneca to cover up that big gaping hole.
Yeah.
Loaded the passengers and flew back to Fort Pierce. Now, when he got back, he bought a used nose cone from a Seneca, He bought it for about $3,000. It arrived, and when he saw it, he went, "Wait a minute! I'm in the fiberglass business now. I can use that to make a mold of a patch, and I can put the patch right on the airplane, and I can send this back and get my $3,000 back." So he made a mold of that part of the bottom of the
Yeah.
nose, and then he put it on the Seneca with his it covered the big gaping hole, and
Yeah.
now you had to lean through that door that has access to the nose and lay down the fabric and then put the epoxy resin on.
Yeah.
It was so cramped that the only person that could actually do that job was your mom,
Oh, really?
because she was short and she had little hands. And so Laura's in there putting the resin down. And
What year is this?
this is probably
90 something?
this is probably 89, maybe.
Okay.
90.
Wow.
Okay. And sure enough, the mold dropped off. It was perfectly smooth. And so he just painted it up. Of course, there was never anything in the logbook about that.
Yeah.
But we flew that airplane for 10 years.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of guy Keith was. He's an excellent pilot. He thought, I'm not going to have sudden stoppage on these engines. I'm going to shut them down. I'm not going to damage the props. I'm going to get them vertical so they don't never hit the runway.
Yeah.
A normal pilot would have just come in, let the engines running, slam down. Now the engines suddenly stop. Now you got to overhaul them. You need new props. You're talking $50,000.
Yeah, like a new plane.
But for Keith, get the duct tape out. And on our Real Cocoa Beans website, on the page for the Sky Larkin coffee,
Yeah.
I've got a picture of Keith with that.
Oh,
all
do
that
you?
going
Okay,
on.
I'm gonna have to go look at that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
So let me tell you some things that I learned flying with Keith. First of all, I learned that touching the control stick, Keith used these two fingers in the middle of his hands, and he just had a light touch on the yoke. And I never saw deviation more than 50 feet either way. If we're flying at 12,000 feet, we flew at 12,000 and maybe 40 feet, but then it would go back to 12,000. It might drop down to 11,000,
Yeah.
80 feet, but it always stayed right there. And he just was touching. He just carried on conversation. He had a real touch, and I aspired. I want to have that kind of touch as a pilot, to be able to feel the airplane. One time we were going to make a flight to Haiti, and there was a hurricane that was coming. We got out to the airport, and I remember the day, and the storm was scheduled to hit Florida within the next 2 or 3 days, but the weather was already coming. And as we're loading up the airplane, and this is going to be an all-day flight down to Haiti, and then we're going to have to get back. And Keith looked at me and he said, nobody's dying. We're not at war. If we don't go today, in the long run, it's really not going to make that much of a difference.
Mm.
And so we didn't make the flight, and he was right. And so that helped me in my flying, because at the time I had become a bush pilot in Honduras. I realized there's no urgency. Safety is paramount, and there's no urgency to make a flight. If somebody's dying, yes, and you got to get them to the hospital, yes. If there's a war going on and you're going to be part of that effort to defeat the enemy, yes. Anything else?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was super helpful. The other thing was Keith was willing to run his bank account empty, and I watched him do it.
Yeah.
We came in one day, and in his office in Fort Pierce, Laura and I, and he was just really depressed. I said, Keith, what's going on? He said, I can't pay my rent this month. I don't have any money. That's when he said, I know I got an airplane somewhere, somewhere. And Laura and I ended up paying the rent for him that month for his warehouse. Keith was such a giver, and he would give and give and give. And I mean,
That's where I firsthand see his influence on your life the most, I would say, is everyone in our family, we're all givers. And I feel like he set a strong precedent for you, and that transferred to your kids, I feel like.
Well, even last night we go to the Italian grill and we're eating that delicious Sicilian pizza, and then the waitress came over and you put the money down for the pizza, and then I put a good tip. I mean, more than 20%. and then you threw another $5 on there and said,
Yeah,
"Yeah, let's give her more."
she was nice, and the money was right there in my
Right.
hand, and there'll be more money in my hand at some point.
And as your mom says, those little dollars don't do any good when they're in the dark.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
that's what I feel. But
and,
anyway, yeah,
and Keith had a very simple faith. He wasn't a theologian,
yeah,
but he appreciated, somewhere along the line, he really appreciated what God had done for him.
mm,
And he realized that growing up as a poor kid in Palatka, Florida, that he had become a man that God had entrusted millions and millions and millions of dollars
yeah,
with. And he had a friend, Danny Lehman, who's one of our friends.
yeah.
Danny's
He knew Danny.
well, Danny's from Santa Cruz.
Okay,
And I think Keith met Danny right after he became a Christian.
okay,
And Kevin was friends with Danny.
okay.
Okay. Danny Lehman, by the way, is one of our heroes because he works with Youth with a Mission, and Danny
Yeah.
has been a famous evangelist and famous missionary in India, leading teams. He was head of the YWAM base in Honolulu for many years, leading teams all over the world. He's now working at the University of the Nations.
I had no idea they knew each other. That's so funny.
Yeah. Well, remember Kit Lauer, our friend from Maui, the wrestler.
Yep.
Kit was also friends with Danny
Okay.
because he was from Santa Cruz.
Okay.
And Danny's one of the radical guys that he's also really influenced my life in a number of ways. But Keith had a very sincere faith, and he knew that when God said to do something, he was very free and willing to do it.
Yeah.
He helped Danny buy bicycles for a number of years, bought bicycles for pastors in India,
Yeah.
Contributed to our school project a number of times. The guy was just a giver.
I feel like he, looking back and now I'm thinking about it, thinking about it, he made that lifestyle look so natural.
Right.
That I think at least I picked up on that being a normal thing you do if you have money, is that you give it away.
But the other normal thing that I think
which now in our society, when people have millions of dollars, they don't really do that.
Right.
You know? Or it's less common.
Yeah. I think another thing we might have picked up is that when God gives you an idea and a resource, you run with it and make the money so that you can give it away.
Yeah.
And so Keith had this idea with the headset, and he's had a lot of ideas along the way that he actually made the money that he had. He didn't have to ask anybody for that money. He put in the sweat to actually make it happen. And he was very good. He was a very good business guy.
Clearly.
And the Bible says that when you have a business model where you're giving away whatever comes in, that God is going to, whenever you give to the poor, it says to the book of Proverbs, you're making a loan to God, and God will repay you.
Yeah.
And I think Keith took that one to heart.
Yeah.
He just gave it, ran out. Okay, I'm going to use the skills God's given me and the talents he's given me. I'm going to make some more money.
Yeah.
And he was a hardworking guy.
Mm. Well, I remember, and I mean, thinking of him now, it's funny just because my impression of him was he was a very happy guy as well.
Very
and then when at least for me, when we got to meet his, we hung out with Kevin at was it a lake house?
Yeah.
Or something, his family.
Yeah.
All of them were very happy and generous. And it was like, you could see firsthand the effects of having the DNA that they have.
Right. And Kevin took some of Keith's ideas and worked with him on a number of projects. But then Kevin started his own business making test set equipment for telephone companies.
Yeah.
Started this company. It was completely independent of what Keith was doing. And Kevin's a hardworking guy that has done pretty much the same thing that Keith did. And he gives a lot of his money away.
Yeah.
So, it's been a remarkable relationship. You meet these characters, and you, at least for me, you look back. What is a life worth? You see headstones born. In Keith's case, it was. I think he was born in 1925. I think he was the same age as my mom, and he died in 1998. Or 2000. So what happened in that time span that really had an impact on humanity and had an impact on the kingdom of God? And that's why we have these hero blends at the Rio Coco Cafe when we're roasting coffee. We have these blends of Sky Larkin. I mean, what a great name! I mean, look at this picture of Keith as a Air Force pilot. Sky Larkin. Remember Sky King? You guys don't remember. That was when I was a kid. That was a TV show. Out of the blue of the western sky comes Sky King. His twin engine airplane. Okay.
You think of Keith when you think of that.
He's Sky Larkin. That's how I came up with the name. But we have these other heroes, and hopefully maybe we can talk about them.
We will.
My friend Jack Dyer, who taught me how to be a bush pilot. Jack, incredible character. I mean, Hal Jones, one of our friends that just so impacted the world in so many ways. Jason Spence, who taught me coffee's ministry, how to have a cup of coffee and disciple people, and even your grandparents, Ron and Jean. These guys were incredible, had an incredible impact on the ministry with the school project, with the with what we're doing on the island of Utila. They were these are heroes of the faith. We have heroes of the faith from ancient times, but we got a lot of modern heroes of the faith right now.
Yeah.
And we've been.
Well, and I realized that Friday, when I was bagging some coffee, I thought, man, I need to take a moment and talk about these characters and learn about them, because, there is so much to be said about things you pick up along the way and identifying, man, who did I learn that from? And there's a whole realm of appreciation, I think, that comes just with the whole experience of life when when you can identify those moments.
When you meet those characters.
Yeah.
See? And I think God wants us all to be characters.
Yeah.
That we sort of
we want to be that person to somebody else.
We want to stand out from the culture and be somebody different.
Yeah. And the little snippet you shared of the girl coming up to Keith at the restaurant. I mean, there's hundreds of kids, thousands of people that have had that would say that to him if they saw him.
Right. And I have subsequently met at least two others.
Yeah.
That when I mention Keith Larkin, and this is even not in California, but they know about that camp up in the Sierras, but when I saw this girl come up to him when we were having breakfast or lunch, I think it was probably lunch, and just say what she did, he just melted. He was just like, wow.
Yeah.
And you think this is what it's all about.
Yeah.
This is what we're here for.
Yeah.
Is those moments.
That's cool that moment happened. That's like a gift from God, because that makes it all worth it.
Think of one day when we might see one of our Mosquito Indian kids.
Right.
And he might come up to us and say,
You don't know me,
but I was in your school in Sawa, and now I got a family. I'm working as designing computers.
Yeah.
And I'm teaching my kids the Bible just like you guys taught us.
Yeah.
We might meet those characters.
Yeah. And I think that's the real kingdom of God, I think, is doing that for your fellow man. So, well, thank you for sharing in detail. I loved all that. There's so much stuff in there that I've never heard of.
I tell you what,
the vending machines, the knowing he's not a sailor.
I mean, Keith was such a trip. I mean, he's got so many stories. He leased out his PBYs. He had a couple of PBYs. Those are the flying boats that land in the water.
Yeah.
Okay. He bought two of those from the Danish government and flew them to Iceland, Greenland, and then to the States and California. We rented one out to the movie when they were doing the movie Midway. This is back in the, I think, 70s. And Keith said, I'll rent the airplane to you if you give me a part in the movie. And so in the movie, you see the airplane landing in the water, and you see this guy paddling in this little inflatable dinghy. That's Keith, dressed as a sailor.
Dressed as a sailor, of all things. That's so funny.
Yeah. Maybe that's where he got his inspiration.
Yeah, he thought, maybe I like this.
Maybe I'll be a sailor. Characters. Well, I hope, I don't know, I'm inspired when I think about Keith, and I hope some of you are sitting out there wondering, what sort of character has God made me? He's given me some unique talents and personality, and he's going to give me resources. And
he has given you resources.
He has. He's already given you resources. So what are you going to do? Are you going to take some information from our friend Sky Larkin? I do all the time. I love bagging up these Hero Blends coffee. I get to think about my dear friends that are not with us anymore. And I know I'm going to see them again. And I know Keith is smiling, and I know Jack, who loved coffee.
Yeah.
Jack is smiling when he sees us putting these labels on the bag.
We'll talk about Jack next.
We'll talk about Jack next, okay?
Is that it? Well, thank you guys for joining us, and thank you for sharing. Next time I bag these, I'm going to have a whole new appreciation for Keith and all the things that he's left us with. And here it is. It's available online.
So, whoops. So you can go to realcocobeans.com and just click on our Hero Blends. Order some Sky Larkin coffee. We'll send it to you. We'll roast it next week, and we'll have it to you by the end of the following week. Okay?
Aloha, everybody.
Aloha.